I wanted to sort of read an entire story to give you an idea of my tone. I guess, you could always go off and read this yourself, but the purpose of being live and speaking about my work is that you get a sense of what I sound like. In this case, it's kind of quite droning Australian accent. And this is the way I think about my stories. Quite flat tonally, I think, and quite matter-of-fact, and my writing's actually been criticised sometimes for being not very good because of its lack of flourish, but that's an intentional thing. I feel like saying to those critics, don't you understand, that's deliberate. So this story is about Eric, the foreign exchange student, and I won't read it out, I'll just tell it as I think about it, and that is, I imagine my stories as really happening. It just helps me to do them. I don't think of them as like a magical story or anything like that. I think of it as something that just happened, and I'm trying to tell somebody like my older brother who doesn't have that much interest in art and literature. I'm just trying to tell him how it happened as straightforward a manner as I can. So anyway, Eric was a foreign exchange student that came to live with us. As you can see, he's quite small and looks like a burnt black leaf, but we're very polite. We never mentioned this. In fact, Eric wasn't even his real name. His real name was unpronounceable, and we struggled with it for a while until he told us, just call me Eric, it's fine. And we'd been very excited to have him come and live with us. This is going to be a big cultural exchange sort of thing. And so we prepared our spare guest room with, fresh paint, carpet, furniture. But he chose to sleep and study in the kitchen pantry. And Mum said, well, that's all right, it must be a cultural thing, we need to respect it, and we just need to make sure he's comfortable. So we started to store a lot of our stuff in other cupboards, and so we wouldn't have to keep going in there all the time. But I used to often wonder if Eric was actually comfortable in our house. And occasionally I would see him through the pantry door gap and he'd be studying, very earnest student. And I wondered, what is it like for somebody to live in our country? All the stuff that we take for granted is actually quite difficult for him. And he would ask a lot of questions. So he was very engaged, but and I'd been looking forward to being an expert finally. Like when you have a foreign exchange student, it's like, yes, the one thing I'm an expert on is my own home. So I can be, quite powerful in some way. But I couldn't answer any of his questions. They were things like, why does a queue have this bit? And what happens between a stamp and an envelope? And why does a drain look like a flower? And all I could say was either I don't know or that's just how it is. So I was constantly trying to find ways to impress Eric, doing other things. And naturally, when you've got a visitor, you take them out and you show them the sights. And so I was thinking, okay, well, what would I show somebody in Western Australia? Well, I'd probably take them to Kings Park, which is a large park overlooking the city. Take them to the zoo, to the art gallery. This isn't actually described in the story. You can just tell from the pictures where it is. To a cafe. And a casino. I don't necessarily recommend taking exchange students to casinos, but there's not that many attractions in Perth in Western Australia. And finally a movie. And very economical popcorn eater. And, I thought, well, these are pretty impressive things, and this must be culturally quite exciting for him, even more so than it is for me. But he never really said anything the whole time. And in fact, even though I was showing him such grand, things, he was fascinated more with little objects that he found on the ground. And this was kind of annoying, actually, because there's a lot of trouble to take him to all these places and when he could, easily be entertained by the car park. And Mum just said, well, it must be some cultural thing. You just have to respect it. And I thought, oh, well, that makes me feel a lot better knowing that it's a cultural thing. But it was very difficult when he finally left, because he did so without really saying goodbye. Well, he said goodbye, but in the way that you'd say if you're just popping down to the shops. And we all thought he'd be back in about 5 minutes, but he wasn't. It was only later that we realised, well, he actually went home to his country. And we were discussing this at evening over dinner when Eric didn't turn up to have his peanut. And I really like this picture in the book that the family they really want to make him feel included, so they've given him a knife and fork, which would be impossible for him to use. And we were really anxious, because we thought, did we offend him? Did we do something that upset him? Would we ever hear from him again? Which of us was rude? Is he being rude? Were we being rude? And this caused us a lot of consternation until we went to have a look at, where he'd been sleeping in the kitchen pantry. And then there was just this. And looking inside the teacup, just a little note. And that's the story, which is... Thanks.